Sign it. Do not make me remember the night you destroyed my future 18 long years ago." The words lingered heavily in the sterile office air. Thick and suffocating silence. My father, Jeffrey, refused to slide the payment across the polished mahogany table. He hurled it instead. A wrinkled $10 bill scraped over polished wood before halting directly in front of me. It appeared tiny, miserable, exactly how he intended for me to feel. He reclined within his leather chair, satisfaction twisting into a smug grin. He was not merely purchasing my 10% share of the family auto repair shop. He was deleting me. He required my signature so he could unload the company, pocket everything, and finally rid himself of the daughter blamed for each failure haunting his miserable, bitter life. He labeled it kindness. I called it eviction papers served without mercy. I kept staring downward at the crumpled money. I imagined the texture of the thin bill beneath my restless fingertips. Without even touching it, I sensed its worn, grimy, embarrassingly cheap state. Slowly, I raised my eyes toward his face. He waited eagerly for me to protest, beg, or collapse into tears. He craved the pleasure of watching me shatter. Instead, I lifted the pen lying nearby. The plastic felt cold and distant against skin. I offered no words. I allowed the insult to linger there, dense and venomous in silence, flooding the space until breathing felt nearly impossible. Then I uncapped the pen with steady fingers. I signed my name along the transfer agreement, pressing hard enough to scar the wood beneath. Jeffrey grabbed the document before the ink dried. He examined it greedily like a lottery winner. That slick, oily grin spread wider across features. Finally, he muttered softly, slipping it inside briefcase. "You finally proved somewhat useful to this family. Now leave. The adults have matters to discuss." He believed he had intimidated his secretary daughter into obedient submission today. He believed he stripped my sole asset away for the cost of a cheap drive-through meal. He never understood who sat calmly before him. "My name is Abigail. I am 30 years old. To my father, I am disappointment incarnate. A glorified office assistant answering calls and fetching coffee without complaint. To everyone else beyond those narrow walls, I am senior acquisition consultant by profession. I specialize in distressed companies and restructuring strategies. I do not draft simple office memorandums. I determine which corporations survive and which are dismantled piece by piece. I oversee portfolios exceeding $800 million. And I understand precisely how to dismantle business agreements from deep within." Okay. I moved toward the door, heels striking tile. Every instinct urged, screaming, hurling every insult back. But I swallowed fury. Silence remained my weapon. This was Trojan horse strategy executed flawlessly. In ruthless merger battles, you never attack corrupt sellers while still partners. Had I retained my 10% ownership during sale of this debt-strangled corporation, I would share liability for fraud he planned. I would shoulder consequences for every deceitful lie. By transferring shares now for negligible compensation, I cleansed my hands. I removed my identity from the liability column. When he deceived future buyers about crushing debts, he would stand alone. He was not simply acquiring my ownership stake. He was purchasing silence and securing passage toward a lawsuit he could never possibly survive intact. I was not surrendering. I was exiting blast radius before detonation began. I pushed open heavy glass doors decisively. I stepped into parking lot under open sky. The cold air bit sharply against my skin. It felt refreshing somehow. It felt like clarity. My husband, Donald, waited inside our aging sedan, the engine softly idling. He glanced up when I entered passenger seat. He never asked whether I felt all right. He understood far better. He noticed rigid jawline, icy determination burning bright. "Did he sign?" Donald asked in quiet tone. "He signed," I replied, fastening my seatbelt. "He believes he prevailed. He thinks I disappeared." Donald shifted into gear. "Then it is finished." "Not yet," I answered, glancing back at building. "He merely swallowed bait. Now we allow poison time enough to spread." I drove home silently, the engine humming softly, soul sound filling cabin. Yet inside my thoughts, I traveled 18 years backward, back to dusty garage, oil-stained and suffocating where everything truly began. I smelled engine grease and stale burnt coffee. I heard machines humming relentlessly in background. I was 12 years old, pushing broom across concrete because Father insisted that was my only talent. My brother, Hunter, 15, toyed with fragile prototype. An intricate engine model Father crafted painstakingly over 6 relentless, exhausting months. It was his masterpiece, his entry into prominence. "Do not touch that," I whispered softly nearby, leaning against worn broom. "Shut up, Abigail." Hunter scoffed with careless arrogance. Dad allowed me looking. He lifted it proudly. Script appeared. Awkward, reckless, and overconfident. I witnessed in slow motion the fatal slip. The model slid free from careless, trembling fingers. The crash thundered violently. Metal exploded upon concrete. Gears flew outward like dangerous shards of shrapnel. Then the doorway opened. Jeffrey stood framed, their face darkening with fury. He studied shattered invention. He looked at Hunter, his cherished golden child, hovering above ruined remains with wide, horrified eyes, and then he looked directly over at me. He did not shout. At trembling, guilty Hunter. He never asked what had truly happened there. He strode across room in 2 furious steps and struck my face with an open palm. The impact sent me crashing onto concrete floor. My broom rattled loudly as it fell beside. "You clumsy, worthless girl." He roared without restraint, spit spraying across cheek. "You destroy all you ever dare to touch. That was our future, and you shattered it." I remained sprawled there on freezing concrete surface, my stinging cheek aflame, gazing upward at Hunter. He never spoke up. He offered no defense. He simply stared downward, relieved blame found elsewhere. That was when I finally understood the rules governing this broken family. Hunter and Jordan counted as prized shining assets. I was recorded liability. I was convenient scapegoat, their punching bag, absorbing every failure not mine, so they stayed flawless. That single slap carved, a scar never fading, not upon tender skin. It marked something deeper. It branded my soul. It taught relentless lesson. No matter tireless effort, no matter perfect results, I would bear blame for every piece wreckage. I turned into driveway and switched to engine off. Donald leaned gently over and clasped my hand, drawing me toward present. The anger still lingered, cold and solid inside my tightening, aching chest, but now it carried clear, sharpened purpose. I glanced through a window. Crossed quiet suburban street, parked before parents' house, sat enormous, lifted pickup. It gleamed, excessive, obnoxious, an $80,000 monument to favoritism. Hunter leaned casually nearby, laughing loudly with Jordan. They never suspected truck was purchased using theft. They never realized company was drowning under debt. They never imagined father committing fraud for appearances. And they certainly ignored the sister they mocked, the failure they dismissed, who would become collector. They shattered me 18 long, unforgiving years ago. They proved fairness illusion. They showed survival demanded greater intelligence and ruthlessness than those seeking destruction. I watched Hunter stroke hood of shiny toy. He appeared secure, confident. He never sensed foundation crumbling beneath polished boots. "Enjoy it while possible, big brother," I whispered, "'cause the bill is coming due." The knife screeched against the porcelain plate. cutting through the silence of the private dining room. Jeffrey hacked into his $60 ribeye steak as though dividing conquered lands. We sat inside Gilded Steer Steakhouse downtown, where lights remain dimmed, leather booths glow crimson, and menus hide prices. "To the big leagues," he proclaimed, raising glass of scotch costing more than my first vehicle. Hunter and Jordan lifted their glasses eagerly, clinking with heavy, satisfied thuds. They wore brand-new suits, glossy, oversized, expensive. They resembled children pretending inside father's vast closet. I lifted plain water. I was ghost attending feast, invited solely because Jeffrey required audience for triumph. 850,000, Jeffrey declared slowly, savoring. Number like aged whiskey. Cash. That Stephen fellow never even blinked once. He recognizes excellence instantly. His eyes shifted toward me without warmth. Was farmer's look toward stubborn, exhausted mule. "And you," he gestured with sharp steak knife. "You finally performed task. I warned you, Abigail. You signed paperwork. Men conduct business affairs. Simple arrangement." He laughed. A damp, rasping sound. "See, women sign documents. Men handle spending power. That remains natural order." Hunter chuckled softly, wiping grease. From chin, "Thanks for signing, Abby. Dad says I become Vice President Operations soon." Jordan handles marketing division. I swallowed rising bitterness with careful sip water. Vice President Operations indeed. Hunter struggled using toaster without constant supervision. Jordan believed marketing involved posting truck photos online. They toasted promotions proudly. Within non-existent corporation funded by vanishing money. So what happens next? Jordan leaned across table. After funds wire Friday, Jeffrey reclined comfortably, leather creaking beneath weight. We disappear completely. I booked plane tickets. Extended vacation somewhere sunny. Maybe Mexico, perhaps Belize. Somewhere bright and silent. What about shop workers? Hunter questioned hesitantly. For a fleeting moment, conscience flickered uncertainly. Inside him, Old Man Miller crew expect overdue wages soon. Jeffrey dismissed concern casually. Let buyers manage mess, or let them claim unemployment. I truly do not care. But contract states payroll coverage remains our duty, Hunter muttered, uneasily. Contract states whatever interpretation benefits us most. Jeffrey snapped impatiently. Those employees drained resources for many ungrateful years. They failed saving business, so why should I save them? I fed them faithfully for countless hungry decades now. It is finally my turn to eat. I tightened a grip around fragile crystal glass stem until my knuckles blanched. Old Man Miller often slipped me extra sandwiches when Jeffrey forgot lunch money for school days. Those mechanics patiently showed me changing tires correctly, taught welding sparks control, taught me standing straight. They truly constructed this business with scarred hands. And Jeffrey planned abandoning them hungry and unpaid while sipping beachside margaritas. That realization sealed everything. If any lingering doubt remained inside stubborn heart, any fragile whisper insisting he remained my father, it died quietly there between appetizer plates served and the main course. This stopped being personal. It became about Miller. It became about receptionist who bought prom dress. It became about every employee used, then discarded. You are absolutely right, Dad, I said evenly voice, slicing air sharply. You deserve everything coming. He grinned broadly, entirely missing layered meaning beneath. Damn right I do. I watched him chew steak, thin red juices trailing slowly. Down his chin, he appeared like royalty. He failed, seeing Cage already locking around him. The conference room upstairs on 42nd floor hovered like glass cage above restless, crowded city. It smelled faintly of lemon polish and overactive aggressive air conditioning. Stephen sat opposite me, thick folder resting between two outside observers. Stephen was CEO of Apex Holdings, acquiring father's company. To me, he remained man I recruited. Personally, 3 years earlier, because his instincts cut ruthlessly, and his expressionless poker face could freeze oceans. He manipulated the books, Stephen stated calmly, tapping folder with restrained irritation. I opened it carefully. The figures practically screamed fraud. Jeffrey concealed $150,000 federal tax liens and vendor invoices long unpaid. He exaggerated machinery assets by nearly 40%. Under normal acquisition terms, this ended negotiations instantly. But this was different. This was calculated execution. He assumes we will not investigate deeply, I murmured, tracing entry hiding overdue payroll debts. If we perform standard due diligence procedures, attorneys flag discrepancies within 24 hours easily, Stephen cautioned quietly. Transaction collapses immediately. Then we avoid standard process entirely, I replied. Stephen lifted one brow. You intend purchasing liability? I intend gifting shovel. I corrected smoothly instead. We waive 30-day due diligence contingency. Period. We claim urgency closing before quarter officially ends. We trade him speed for illusion of safety. From my briefcase carefully, I withdrew single document. The personal indemnity agreement. Common clause within high-risk acquisition. Structures, yet too desperate seller. It resembled harmless fine print, buried quietly below. It declared that misrepresentation of financial statements pierced corporate protective veil entirely. Seller became personally liable for triple proven damages, forfeiting all personal assets pledged as guarantee security. He signs this page, I explained, sliding document across polished table surface, and he surrenders keys to entire fragile life. The door swung open. Jeffrey entered confidently, flanked by Hunter and Jordan. They filled sterile space with loud voices, cheap cologne, unchecked arrogance. They never acknowledged me. Sat back corner, typing quietly on laptop, wearing plain tailored gray suit. To them, mere note-taker. The hired help gentleman, Stephen rose smoothly, extending firm professional handshake. Let us generate profits. Jeffrey settled head position, leaning back expansively satisfied. I appreciate efficiency directly. You have brought check. Better, Stephen answered evenly. I offer accelerated closing. My investors demand completion by this coming Friday. I am prepared, waiving inspections and audit window. Funds transfer within 48 decisive hours. Hunter discreetly high-fived Jordan beneath broad table. Jeffrey's eager eyes brightened. He glimpsed finish line ahead. He missed hidden tripwire. However, Stephen continued smoothly, voice silk over steel. Since audit period skipped, I require personal guarantee confirming books remain accurate. Standard protective procedure. Simply sign here declaring there exist no undisclosed debts whatsoever. Outstanding. Jeffrey chuckled lightly, a greedy, anxious sound. Clean as whistle. You have my word. I require signature instead, Stephen replied calmly, pushing indemnity agreement nearer him. Jeffrey seized waiting pen. He never bothered reading. He ignored dense clauses entirely. He already spent imaginary money inside reckless mind. He signed boldly flourishing, and we require notary. Stephen motioned subtly toward man seated quietly. Nearby, Donald rose from chair. My husband, steady, patient man, Jeffrey mocked as unambitious for valuing stability over reckless gambling ventures. Jeffrey scarcely looked twice. To my father, Donald was merely another furnishing. He did not grasp. That man pressing stamp was witness guaranteeing enforcement of contract in federal court beyond his reach. Donald lowered heavy seal, thump. The sharp report reverberated through silent room like judge's gavel striking. Jeffrey rose quickly, gripping Stephen's hand enthusiastically. Pleasure doing business with you today, truly. The pleasure is mine. Stephen replied evenly, unsmiling. I observed them exiting, exchanging loud high fives down bright polished hallway. They celebrated imagined triumph that resembled quiet funeral. Jeffrey had wagered house, truck, and fragile freedom upon lie told confidently to dangerously wrong audience. Donald met my gaze. He shut his notary ledger with deliberate calm. He did not greet me at all, Donald said softly. He will not speak much by Friday, I answered, lowering laptop. The ink had dried. The phone rang sharply at 11 that evening, night before scheduled closing. I recognized caller instantly before, glancing at screen. Jeffrey adored victory laps. I sat balcony overlooking Portland lights shimmering below, wine glass resting in hand. I swiped accept, activating record function discreetly. Hello, Dad, I said. You awake? His voice arrived, thick and slurred. Celebration started prematurely tonight. I bet you're awake, probably calculating rent payments with that $10 bill I tossed you. He laughed wetly, rasping. Bottle clinked against glass somewhere behind his words. I am perfectly fine, I replied calmly. Did the transaction finalize? It's finished, he boasted loudly. We sign tomorrow morning. $850,000. Can you believe, idiots? Those city suits rushed closing without scrutiny whatsoever. Did not inspect books. Sounds fortunate indeed, I murmured, baiting further. Are you certain everything is completely spotless? Tax liens surface later? They will not, he interrupted quickly, whispering. That's brilliance of scheme. Handed them sinking ship Abigail, completely rotten. Inventory rusted, pension hollow, tax collector knocking loudly. Before discovery happens, I'll relax beachside Scabo. Recorder numbers climb steadily. 48, 49. So you acknowledge deception? I asked carefully. I never lied, he scoffed arrogantly. I simply withheld details they neglected asking. That is business practice. But you lack understanding. You are merely secretary, correct? Just secretary. Unfortunate being you, he barked drunken laughter. Hunter buys another truck. Jordan browsing luxury condos. And you? Enjoy $10 and dismissal. Goodbye, Jeffrey, I stated, ending call immediately. I archived audio securely, backed it into 3 separate encrypted clouds. Within fraud litigation, intent remains hardest element, proving until someone foolishly admits knowledge assets sinking fast while certifying solvency warranties. Premeditated, malicious, admissible. Yet recording formed single snare. Jeffrey imagined selling company to stranger named Stephen. He never suspected front nor what I accomplished 3 days prior quietly. I visited bank holding commercial mortgage, and loans purchased distressed obligations entirely. Banks adore offloading liabilities. I deployed liquidity strategically, acquiring notes for pennies. Effectively, I became lender. I owned mortgage securing his residence outright. Held liens against equipment, controlled truck debts. Hunter drove proudly through town. He negotiated not buyer, but silent executioner. He anticipated payday tomorrow. He overlooked foreclosure proceedings already quietly initiated. Expected windfall existed illusion. Champagne chilled inside silver bucket. Condensation forming. Hunter and Jordan quivered with restless anticipation, tapping designer watches eagerly upon sleek glass table. Jeffrey leaned back smugly. What? Causes delay. Jeffrey snapped impatiently. Wire should arrive minutes ago. Stephen glanced upward, bored. Escrow detected issue. What issue? Jeffrey demanded, leaping from leather chair. I signed documents. I surrendered keys. Where is money? Audit uncovered discrepancy, Stephen explained evenly, sliding loan sheet forward. 150,000 undisclosed tax liens. Unpaid payroll. You certified zero debt. That error? Jeffrey shouted, face flushing purple. Accountant blundered badly. I'll dismiss him. Release funds immediately. Impossible, Stephen replied calmly. Agreement now void. Unless what? Jeffrey barked. Unless chairman authorizes override. Then summon him. Jeffrey slammed fist. Heavily. Call immediately. Bring chairman. No phone necessary, voice echoed from doorway. Heavy oak door opened slowly. I entered confidently, not gray office suit, but tailored black dress and sharp stilettos clicking across polished hardwood. I approached head position, pulled chairman chair smoothly, sat deliberately composed. I placed briefcase down, snapped. Latches opened loudly. Silence expanded sharply. Jeffrey blinked repeatedly. Abigail, what are you doing here exactly? Come scrub floors. Hunter chuckled crudely. Lost route to break room, Abby. I'm not here cleaning, I replied steadily. I'm here to collect. Jeffrey laughed thinly, trembling. You are secretary. Leave before security removes you. Stephen's voice hardened cold. Mr. Hayes. Meet managing partner of Helios Capital, entity acquiring all assets. This is Abigail. Color drained from Jeff's face instantly. He looked between us, mouth opening, closing, uselessly. That's impossible, he whispered. You do not have money. I possess more than enough, I replied calmly, and I hold personal indemnity agreement you signed 3 days earlier willingly. Donald notarized document while you ignored him completely. I pushed papers forward. His signature stared back like accusation in ink. You falsified federal disclosure form knowingly, I said. You certified solvency while understanding company was sinking. I retained recorded confession from our conversation. Yesterday. That activates fraud clause. Punitive damages tripled immediately. You set trap. He gasped hoarsely. I performed audit, I corrected evenly, and you did not pass. For decades, he appeared towering, loud, intimidating presence dominating every single room. But his authority lacked character foundation entirely. It was funded. Money purchased, silence, obedience, loyalty, and fear. He confused net worth with personal value. Now, as numbers dissolved, so did inflated man. He shriveled within chair, arrogance leaking away slowly, revealing frightened, aging bully clutching empty pockets. Hunter began stuttering, frantic. You cannot do this. What about my truck? I paid deposit already. The truck is repossessed, I answered without glance. And residence follows similarly. I faced Jeffrey again. I acquired more than business entity itself. Purchased outstanding banknotes, control mortgage, liens, personal and commercial loans. After your fraud admission, I am accelerating them effective immediately today. I have nowhere left, Jeffrey murmured faintly. I am aware, I replied. I rose smoothly. Stephen, initiate foreclosure proceedings. I have luncheon scheduled. Recovery agents waited outside. Hunter shouted as tow truck lifted prized vehicle. Jordan attempted fleeing. Gate security intercepted him quickly. Jeffrey remained seated motionless until guards escorted him toward exit doors silently. When he reached for company-issued laptop device, Stephen gently reclaimed it. Company property, Stephen stated. Owned by new management. Consequences unfolded completely. Escrow suspended transferred funds pending fraud inquiry results. Yet Jeffrey had pre-spent fortune mentally and through reckless credit charges. Condominium deposits, first-class flights, elaborate furnishings, purchased for imaginary future life. When transfer never arrived, checks rebounded repeatedly. 3 days afterward, foreclosure notice delivered formally, because I controlled. Mortgage, I filed list pendants blocking any refinance, sale, or equity extraction attempts. He remained confined inside house, unaffordable now, burdened by debts overwhelming entirely, unemployed and unprotected. I denied starvation. I granted 30 days. He relocated eventually into one-bedroom apartment positioned above laundromat, wrong side. It's cramped, noisy, smelling strongly of detergent and regret. Appropriate consequence. Following Monday morning, I returned to auto shop once more. Grease and bitter coffee, perfumed air unchanged since 18 years earlier. Workers appeared anxious, bracing for inevitable layoffs announcement. "Gather around," I instructed, standing atop wooden crate. "My father is finished. Hunter and Jordan departed. Leadership destroying this place is permanently removed." Murmurs traveled across group. "I am owner now," I declared steadily. "My first action? Repay every outstanding wage owed plus 10% interest." Miller lifted eyes, stunned. "Second directive," I continued. "Promote Miller to shop foreman immediately effective. He understands this operation better than anyone present." Miller wept quietly. Men clapped his shoulders, smiles resurfacing after years. I walked toward stained concrete patch where once I gripped lonely broom, where Jeffrey struck me. I remained standing there until memory surrendered power. Shame dissolved completely. That frightened, worthless girl had transformed into woman owning entire structure. I stepped outside sunlight. Donald waited inside sedan, engine running softly. "Ready to leave?" he asked. "Yes," I answered, fastening belt. "Let's go home." They labeled me liability, bad investment, disposable burden. I demonstrated I audited books entire time quietly, if you've ever had.